the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to thee, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. When I was a sister in the Order of St. Helena, I was on the guest team. It was up to us to make sure that our retreatants had a good experience. They would come tired and hungry to get some respite and to ask questions and to be fed, basically, to be fed the Word and to be fed bread, which we baked ourselves. We were responsible for making sure the rooms were clean, that there was a Bible in the room and a good reading light, that the windows were clean. The trails had to be kept clear of brush. We had to give lessons on how to remove ticks. And then the meals were extraordinary. The sisters, we cooked everything, and we'd bring out plate after plate of food that we shared with everyone. And then we sang the office. Everyone was invited to come into the chapel, and we would sing the psalms, we would sing the responses, and we would pray a lot. We said 4 offices: morning prayer, noon prayer, evening prayer, and good night prayer, the Compline service. And in between those, we had lessons or retreat addresses for people on a theme. When these people that have been fed by Jesus come searching for him on their boats, they are like the retreatants. They've just had a great meal. Jesus pulled out all the stops. He had 2 fish and 5 loaves of barley, and he fed 5,000 people. This was an incredible sign of who Jesus was, and he used that word. It was a sign. And they saw the sign and wanted to make him king. They lost the point, but they wanted to king him. And his disciples left without him. They took off across the sea because he had gone up on the mountain to pray. And then that's when he appeared walking on the surface of the lake. Because his disciples were afraid, he showed up there for them. But the people who were fed all this food, fed enough that they were full. They had abundance of food. There was leftover food. They got hungry again. They got in the boats to go look for him, and they're hungry again. They want another repetition, another work. Prove to us you are who you are. And they ask the most ridiculous question when they find him. When did you get here? When did you get here? Now, we sisters would get ridiculous questions, too. Things that we would never think people would ask. But our job was to answer them in the Spirit of Christ. So Jesus, in the Spirit of Christ, which he is, gave them the answer that he knew they should have asked the question for. Here's what the answer is to what you should have asked, and that is, I already fed you. I already did the sign. You remember that time when I fed all of you? That was the sign. And you're asking for more. You are looking for the kind of bread that you work for. This is the kind of bread that you go to work, it's your daily job, you get paid money, you buy a loaf of bread. I'm asking you to work for that other loaf of bread, which is called belief. And he says that the work that he asks us to do is to believe. Now, this crowd keeps using the words that signify that Jesus has already done it. They use the words work and sign. Work and sign in a different way, the way we think of as what miracles are you going to perform, Jesus? And they don't see what he's already done. Jesus uses the word in an ironic way, that we have to work for our belief. We have to have a spiritual practice. We have to admit that we don't always believe the way we believed yesterday. That each day we get up and we have to start the work of believing all over again. Sometimes it comes naturally. Sometimes it doesn't. The stories in this Gospel of John all show how you come to believe. Either people see Jesus and immediately they know that this is the Son of God and they proclaim him to be the Son of God, Or they come to him and have this, it's called a midrash style of arguing with Jesus, seeing if he knows the answers. And Jesus, who knows their questions before they ask them, is answering what they should have asked and upending their logic. Because belief in God upends our logic. It's not a logical thing. We have to take a leap. We have to know what it is we want to believe before we can believe. We have to admit that sometimes our belief needs a little freshening up. That's why I used to go to the convent before I became a sister. What I received in my parish worship was not enough for me. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. I participated in it fully. But I needed to get away and go to the convent and have a group of sisters minister to me. I needed to soak up that silence. I needed to come with them in the morning when it's so still and barely light and say the Psalter with them. There was something about that repetition of prayer day in and day out that fed me in ways that I wasn't fed in my parish life. And by admitting that, I allowed another kind of spirituality to enter into my life that needed upkeep. The more you believe, the more you're asked to do. The more you believe, the more you're asked to do. So, the disciples say, why can't you be like Moses? Moses gave us manna in the wilderness. And Jesus says, no. Moses didn't give you the manna. Our Father in heaven gave the manna. And I am that manna coming from heaven to earth. God has sent me to be manna. Feed on me. Now you have to go back to the story of Moses and think about what manna is in order to get the spirituality of this. Not only has he upended what the seekers were talking about, they wanted him to be like Moses, and he had to say once again, I was like Moses. I fed you bread. And now you have to see that it's not just the bread, it's me. Believe in me. When the Israelites got up in the morning and they found this flaky stuff on all the bushes, it wasn't very palatable, but it was enough for them to nourish them through that one day. They would collect these flakes, they would eat it, and they would have enough nutrients to survive another day. They were in the wilderness, and they were fed. Moses struck the rock with his walking stick, and water gushed forth. They drank in the desert. As long as they were in the wilderness, they were cared for by this God with his tenacious, abiding, steadfast, Old Testament love. This is who Jesus represents to these new seekers. This same steadfast, abiding, loving presence that will be enough for you today. So when we wake up in the morning and want another miracle, because yesterday's miracle is old news, we need another miracle today. What we are supposed to do is to thank God for what we have. Whatever we have, it is enough. If we're having troubles, God will give us enough 1 minute at a time to get on with our work of what we need to do. The manna isn't palatable. Sometimes we don't like what God has given us. We suffer, we go through hills and valleys of our faith, and we feel very alone sometimes. God gives us manna. We have enough to go on one day. We have to stay focused on that day and find someone, a spiritual teacher, a friend, if you're in need, who will reach out to you in love, who understands what you are going through. As we age, our faith changes. We can't have the faith of a 13-year-old when we're 60 years old. Our belief changes every day. We wake up and we are straddled with more obstacles that seem to get in the way of what we want to do with our faith. We want to fix our chapel, our church. We want to have enough money to do more outreach. We want to grow our children's ministry. We want to communicate better with each other. We want. And we believe that it's happening, even as we speak. That's what our faith teaches us, that Jesus is enough for us today. He is the manna, and his present tense that he speaks to these seekers who are just not getting it is the present tense that we hear today. He is here. He is providing us not only with the bread that we eat at the altar, but with himself, with how he became the issue. He was on a cross for us so that he could be with us in every single instant of our life, all through the pain, all through the loneliness, and all through the ebb and flow of our belief. When I left the Order of St. Helena, it felt like betrayal to my sisters, and many of them felt betrayed that I left. I left because I found Jesus doing a new ministry. I was fed completely when I lived in the convent. I lacked for nothing, either spiritually or concrete. I was fed, I was housed, I was loved. I got everything I needed from the convent. But I changed. I grew into a different kind of person that wanted to be out here in a parish, giving my life to this kind of work. I couldn't do that and be a sister too. I didn't think my belief would lead me there. I questioned God. I went to my spiritual directors. I went to priests. I went to people I trusted who would tell me the truth. Is this really what God is asking me to do? And everyone validated what I was saying. They saw it all along, which is sometimes what people tell you. Oh, I knew you'd do that. I saw it all along. My friends before I entered the convent knew I would enter the convent. They saw that all along. So what are you going to do? You have to take the manna that Jesus gives us today. Take it today and change. Next Monday is Transformation Sunday. We are called to transform. Well, it's not Sunday, it's Monday. Pardon me. The day after next week is Transformation Day. We are called to transform our belief, our thoughts, our bodies. They age, and our beliefs change as we age. We have to be true to ourselves always and stay close and abiding and steadfastly with Jesus, who is there with us. So may we be open to who we are today. May we be open to seeing that other people are changing. Our spouses may change and we don't like it. May we be open to that so that Jesus can work us like a potter does the clay and make us who he needs us to be. Amen.